Let's face it, the odds were stacked against Brutal Legend from the start. Tim Schafer games? Niche market. Heavy metal? Niche market. Jack Black fans? Niche market. Needless to say, the commercial appeal of this title was limited at best. Factor in the fact that the game was dropped by a publisher who shall remain unnamed before EA picked it up, and that it was shipping the same day as one of the most highly anticipated sequels of the year, and you start to see just how much of an uphill climb Brutal Legend would have before even arriving on store shelves. But even through all the adversity, the doubt, and the worry, Brutal Legend manages to be a fun title with a great story that can be enjoyed by everyone. Eddie Riggs is a roadie who questions whether or not he was born at the right time. It's not until a terrible accident and a mystical relic combine to transport him to a world of metal mythology that Eddie finally feels as if he might have found the place where he belongs. When he awakens, he's thrust into a fight against a demon horde and is able to escape thanks to some help from a mysterious woman named Ophelia. She introduces Eddie to the resistance movement, whose goal is to overthrow Diviculus and return freedom and metal to the land. Along the way, you'll come across references to just about every era of metal, from glam rock to emo to death metal, and encounter all manner of characters based on familiar stereotypes like meat-headed headbangers, spiked stud-wearing bikers, and gothic beauties. It's a story of trust, betrayal, love, redemption, and freedom, all hallmarks of the most epic of rock ballads, and all captured perfectly. Clever, humorous, and full of heart, Brutal Legend's story just might be one of the most memorable adventures of the past few years.
Yaks, so you come for it as well.
No, but these guys jumped me and... Hang on. And it was just sitting there, so... You like the car?
As you explore the game's world, you can't help but gaze in wonder at the stunning vistas. From the mountains made of bones, to the waterfront cliff made entirely of speakers, to the dreary cathedral-filled wastelands, there's hardly an inch of this world that's not home to a reference to the music that inspired the game. Despite looking like an oversized Glenn Danzig, Eddie has a look that conveys both an everyman and a hero. Each of the different characters you encounter are also expertly realized. Everything is animated very well, and main characters have some of the most emotive facial expressions for a game not reliant on motion capturing actors' performances. While much of the performance comes out in the terrific voice acting from pros like Tim Curry, Jennifer Hale, and a surprisingly calm and collected Jack Black, the facial expressions in the game add a wealth of personality to already well-developed characters. Much has been made of the game's soundtrack, and with good cause. There's enough metal in here from various genres and times to satisfy everyone. The original score doesn't quite pack the punch of the previously recorded tunes, but it does a solid job of filling the silence moment to moment. The few times that licensed music is used to emphasize the story, it's used to great effect. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few dozen people converted to the musical tributes to the Dark Lord from any of the 50+ bands that contributed to Brutal Legend's track listing.
Well, it's about fucking time!
When playing as Eddie alone, you'll have two types of attacks at your disposal. Your axe deals out the melee damage utilizing simple 2-button combos, while your guitar handles what could be considered magic attacks. You're also able to cast spells by learning any of the 11 guitar solos scattered across the game. All the solos you learn in the game can do various things, like melt enemy faces or raise relics hidden around the world.
This thing's really liven up a dull corner.
The combat isn't overly complicated, nor is it so simple that it's boring, but there are times when it can be a bit button-mashy when switching back and forth between the two main weapons. Eddie also has access to a fully customizable hot rod dubbed the Deuce, which once unlocked, can be summoned at any time with the solo. It doesn't handle very well, and sometimes you'll go careening off a cliff because you missed a turn, but it gets you around faster than walking. The few driving missions aren't all that tough, nor do they require you to do any clutch driving, but it would have been nice if the Deuce drove a bit better. Scattered throughout the world, you'll spot locations with what look like the top of engine blocks sticking out of the ground. These relics are known as motor forges, and that's where you can purchase upgrades for both the Deuce and your weapons. In exchange for fire tributes, you can upgrade your weapons with better attack power, or add weapons, nitro, and armor to the Deuce. Completing missions, defeating roaming enemies, finding relics, freeing bound serpents, the game's version of hidden packages, or unlocking legends, which expand upon the history of the Metal World, earn you fire tributes to spend on better equipment. Rounding out the gameplay is the stage battle system, which is how all boss battles are fought. Both Eddie's faction and the opposing forces build a stage to hold a battle of the bands, and the only way to win is by destroying the other team's stage. Once you've started a stage battle, you're required to tap into fan geysers, which are the Brutal Legend equivalent to Tiberium or gold, and draw their mystical power to your stage to recruit your army. There's a bit of a real-time strategy element involved, as you'll be directing your forces on the battlefield with simple commands like follow, attack, and defend a location or an enemy. And adding the RTS style makes for a nice change of pace, but I can see people getting easily frustrated by the way that part of the game controls. It's not overly difficult, but there's quite a bit to manage, especially later in the game. Brutal Legend's combat system allows you to team up with any of your followers for special attacks. Some team-ups only strengthen specific attacks, while others have you throwing your fellow combatants at an enemy, while yet others combine for status bonuses for all your troopers. The only issue I had with the stage battles is just how steep the difficulty curve became towards the last third of the game. Battles can last upwards of an hour, and if you're unlucky enough to lose, it's back to the start. The multiplayer for Brutal Legend relies exclusively on the stage battle. You and up to 7 other people split into 2 teams, each in control of one of the 3 factions from the game. While this can be fun, it's actually more frustrating than the standard stage battles because with multiple players on one side, the too many cooks in the kitchen axiom goes into effect. It can be extremely detrimental to your chances of winning when all the soldiers you just summoned are sent off to die by another player, or when one person hastily spends resources before you've had a chance to build up enough units. It's fun to play as either the Tainted Coil or Drowning Doom, if only because they play so radically different from Ironhead. Lag can become an issue, and is more pronounced the more people you add, and there are only a few different maps available, but multiplayer is definitely more than just a tacked-on game mode. Brutal Legend may be a mixed bag of genres, styles, and interests, but with the guiding hand of Tim Schafer, the title is able to become more than the sum of its parts. It's hard not to become engrossed by the characters and their story, but that's not the only reason you'll keep playing. The combined gameplay styles work well together to provide players with enough variation that the game doesn't become too repetitive, save for the times you'll die and have to replay lengthier portions of the game. I had a great deal of fun living in this world for a few days, and I'll likely dive back in to play through the game again. Brutal Legend isn't the Game of the Year contender the hype had led many to believe, but it's still a good game, and despite a few flaws, would certainly be a welcome addition to any game library. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the full text review on Gamervision.com.